things we buy every day are still on the rise. And no matter the reading today, it wasn't going to be putting cash in anybody's pocket anytime soon. My next guest puts cash in people's pocket every day. Please welcome into the show Keith Fitz-Gerald, principal of the Fitz-Gerald Group. Keith, everybody's looking. What is it going to be? 6.5 to 6.2? Could it be a 6? Is there a 5 in front of it? It doesn't matter. People, it's not going to put any money in people's pockets. I want to do a cash-adjusted CPI, like the things that we buy and use every day or week. That's what matters. Who cares about used car sales coming down? I'm not going to buy a used car every day.
What's that old saying? Nobody ever went broke on accrual accounting. I mean, that's what this is.
Right.
It's like you have to have cash in your pocket to buy stuff, sell stuff, use stuff, get stuff for your house. I mean, stuff is critical, and unfortunately, the government only has one thing in mind, and it's how to make up stuff that doesn't exist about things that we actually need in our lives. And today's number was more of the same as far as I'm concerned. The numbers are more cooked than a Christmas goose. They're just simply draw down, dumb.
So if at last count, I think we raised rates and historically quickly 7 times last year, 1 time this year. So that's 8, right? And I know that some of them are lagging and they're going to have to work their way through the system, but still 8 interest rate hikes. And we only got 0.1% off month over month or year over year from 1 month to the next. That's going to make some people think, boy, oh boy, how much more are we going to have to raise rates to get it from 6.4 to 2%, right? That's got to be one thing that I think everybody's worried about. And number 2 is, you know what? If oil squeezes up, we've got a lot of prognosticators out there saying it could be $90, $100 oil. That's going to be another problem. I just see a lot of problems, Ed. I'm not trying to be, shake the tree and have the sky is falling, but I think that we do definitely have some issues out there.
Well, we do, and the biggest issue is that the Fed does not have a rates problem like everybody thinks. The Fed has a fiscal problem. The government spending money, and as long as it's doing that, the only thing the Fed can do is put blood in the left arm and take it out of the right arm. It's not going to do squat, no matter how much they raise rates. So, I mean, quite literally, they could raise it until the cows come home and not fix this problem. I know.
Okay.
Here we go. But I couldn't resist the temptation given the name of your show. So, boom.
Let's go with this. I want to ask you about this. Pause and pivot, the 2 P words that everybody keeps. I think we might see them slow the pace of hikes down. I don't call that a pause. Maybe you could say it was me. But there's going to be no cut. I mean, they're not going to pivot. And so how does anybody come up with those 2 things, especially after seeing today's number?
I don't know the answer to that. My own 2 cents, for what it's worth, Scott, is that I think the Fed is going to be boxed into a corner come June. I think that there's an outside chance they may be forced to recognize that they are as wrong about rates and labor as they were about transitory. Now, you and I both know in the real world, if you run a ranch, if you run a business, you've got to ultimately put food on the table. You got to have cash for your crops, cash for your herd. You've got to do things that count. Real world, you don't get the inputs you like, you stop, you regroup, and you rethink. I think that's where the Fed's going to find itself in June. I'm optimistic that there's still that glimmer of hope that they're going to say, hey, wait a minute. Let's regroup. Let's figure this out, because I think they would be wise to pause right now. They would be wise to take a look around, figure out all the damage they're causing so that the markets can take a breather. Everybody out there, 300 million Americans, can take a breather in their wallets, because energy is going to be on the move. Resources are going to be on the move. Food and fertilizer are going to be on the move. But even despite all that, so is the stock market.
So to that point, a lot of folks talk about that 6.5%, now 6.4% CPI, which is the inflation rate that everybody's going to talk about tonight on the news, and how it needs to be 2%. That's the government mandate. And by the way, that 2% is an average, so that means it's going to have to below there for a while, too.
Well, it's also made up. It's
right.
Totally fabricated.
But
people are shocked to learn that was just simply fly on the wall comment from a financial minister in New Zealand, and somehow it became dogma.
Okay, so that dogma. I mean, could you see a point in time where they go, they give up, they cry uncle and say, our goal is now 4%, and we'll try to bring it down to 2% over time?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because conspiracies take a lot of effort and a lot of intelligence, and I don't think the Fed has either.
Well, I mean, that's a good short answer to the question. I think that there are those folks out there that think maybe even a 3% kind of a shot would be something that they're thinking about, because I think that that's the big bull case you make for stocks, outside the fact that stocks can rally when things are bad, too.
Well, but again, this is another thing that we talk about with our folks all the time. Not all stocks are the same. If you look at stocks that are must have, like an Apple, for example, there's only one of those in the world, and it's arguably one of the most sophisticated companies that has ever been created in the history of mankind. It makes $700,000 a minute or thereabouts. There's only one of those. On the other hand, you've got something like Peloton, which is nice to have. Apple's going to be with us for decades. Peloton is going to be lucky if you find it at a garage sale in a couple of years.
Yeah, all right. Well, hopefully you're with us for decades. That's what I think about that. That was a great segment. I really appreciate you coming on. That's Keith Fitz-Gerald coming to us from Seattle. Thanks for being on the show, Keith.
Hi, it's Keith here. Thanks for checking out today's highlight clip. What'd you think? Did I make sense? Is there something you'd like to add? Make sure you leave a comment down below, and of course, click subscribe to keep up right here on YouTube, or sign up for the email newsletter at the link below. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram for my real-time thoughts on markets, analysis, and a whole lot more.